sing we want to sing it so loud that like all the Lutherans down the street wonder what's happened to the Catholics, okay? So we've got the joy. Here we go. We've got the joy. 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 We've got the joy of the Lord in our hearts. Of the Lord in our hearts. And there ain't no one. And there ain't no one who can take it from us. Take it from us. We've got the joy. We've got the joy of the Lord in our hearts. 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 We've got the joy. We've got the joy of the Lord in our hearts. Of the Lord in our hearts. Round of applause for you, everybody. That was great. Okay.
I love it. We got our exercise in and we got the song in. So anyway, great. Thank you. So we're going to continue now. What I'm going to try to do in this session is I'm going to create a spiritual pathway for joy. And these next two sessions. So what does that mean? I'm going to try and help, if you would, take the science to sacrament. I want to try and make a sacrament in our lives about this. So I'm going to do basically the chapters or section of the book that they mentioned was the nature of joy from the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. And then I'm going to frame it in Ignatian spirituality, but then I'm going to add now, it's the science around tiny habits. Now you've heard me talk about tiny habits. So I'm going to be talking a lot about what is this, how do we help ourselves use what is good about our body and our mind and our brain and how it works and help us to form habits of joy. And then I'll put in there as a constant pastoral call of Pope Francis to that. So again, just as a reminder, joy is not a fleeting emotion, but it's a way we approach the world. It's a choice that we look at the world through the lens of joy. Now there's all these different pillars that we've just gone through. So it's not a feeling that we're waiting for, but it's a way of being that we're choosing, right? It's not a feeling we're waiting for. I feel joyful, I feel happiness. That's not, I'm choosing a path of joy. Now, what I want to jump in here with, do you remember 2 years ago, our first retreat here, we called Rekindle the Fire. Remember that? Rekindle the Fire or Kindle the Fire. And so what I want to talk about there is I'm going to use that session to help us sort of come back to some of that. But let me just recap a little bit about what joy for Dalai Lama and Archbishop Tutu is not dependent on external circumstances, right? It's for us, it's cultivated internally. So that's what this choice we're talking about. And it's relational to other people and how we relate to other people. So in this sense, and this sounds strange, but it's true, joy is learned, it's not inherited. You don't inherit joy from your parents, right? You have to learn how to be joyful. And it requires then practice. Now, here's what's interesting. Now, a lot of the studies that I'm going to refer to, and somebody asked me about challenge, they don't study joy, but they study in Stanford and in Harvard and other schools around, but those are the two big ones, is actually happiness, because they look at what makes people happy, right? There's a school of happiness. There's actually a dean of happiness. Wouldn't you love that job? What's your job? I'm a dean of happiness. I'd love that title, yeah. So here's what's interesting. So their studies show right now that 40 to 50% of happiness, of our happiness that we can tangibly name, is shaped by daily habits, not by genetics or circumstances. In other words, 40 to 50% is up to us to decide, regardless of what happens outside. So just that kind of quantifies it really well. But the other part I want to spend a little bit on, because this is super important to me, because I think it helps us understand that physiologically, we respond to this. Physiologically, our body has certain hormones that kick in that when we do certain things. So for example, we know that laughter reduces cortisol and strengthens our immune system. So we have to understand that. So cortisol, right, is the one, it's great. It's what it gets shoot into our system when we need to fight, right, or flight, right? That's cortisol, boom, we get. The thing is, it's great for short term, damages us long term, big time. So you don't want cortisol in your body long term. So that's why stress is so damaging, because it increases your cortisol, right? And laughter reduces your cortisol. So that's why laughter is one of the pillars, or humor is one of the pillars that helps reduce. That's how it reduces. Now, I know I'm going a little technical, but I think it's important to get into this because it's going to build on what I'm going to say next about the tiny habits. Gratitude boosts both serotonin and dopamine. Now, in case you don't know what both of those things do, serotonin is what regulates our moods, our sleep, and our appetites. Fundamentally, our well-being, right? On a physiological and emotional level, both those. So we know, so often then you try to increase the serotonin to make you feel better. So there are actual drugs that do that. They actually increase their serotonin in the hope. Now the problem is that when it gets injected into the system through a pharmacological method, it doesn't seem to have the same effect as natural produced serotonin, right? Now the other one is dopamine. This one we're pretty familiar with, I think we're most. Dopamine is that's what regulates, these are neurotransmitters, okay? That's what both these things are, neurotransmitters. And the neurotransmitter of dopamine increases pleasure and reward. It is what motivates us, it's what establishes behavior, repeated behavior, and it controls movement. So dopamine, so this is what they go after in social media. Social media gives you a dopamine hit and thus repeats the behavior. It's what gets habits to be habits. It gets, unfortunately, the downside of it is what also accounts for addiction. Right, so it has a downside. This isn't all upside. So those who are addicted to social media, for example, some people will spend, just understand today, just to know the numbers. And if you ever doubt what I say about how it's destructive to our being as our modern society, that children, now we're talking about under 18, that shouldn't even be allowed on social media, but they are spending up to 6 hours a day on social media. That's a statistical fact. And here's what's even crazier. Adults, 5.5. Now just think about that. 5 to 6 hours a day, and you don't have time to pray? But just understand the science of it. Why? Because prayer is not giving you a dopamine hit yet. That's what I'm here to change. I got a new pathway for you. Now, I'm not going to be feeding you any drugs, but I am going to have you understand the science of why what they've done, as in the social media companies, in particular, Facebook and all their, Meta and all their things, right? But also the simple bing on, you've heard me say this before, the simple tune of the iPhone, bing, that tune, that sound, did you get, right? Cost $1.2 to $1.4 million to research that exact sound to be the most addictive possible. It's not accidental, my friends. None of these things are accidental. They were designed with dopamine hit intentionally. They have researched your brains to figure out what makes you want to do more, right? So if we can understand that, so it's important to understand that, because if we want to stop a habit, then we need to understand what we need, because you can't stop a habit without replacing it. That doesn't work, right? You have to do something to replace something. So it's very hard to stop something. You have to move to something. That's the easiest way, and that's the science of habit changing, right? Habit behavior shift. So if you want to, for example, lose weight, you stop eating. Well, it's even better to go running. right? You don't eat, you go out for a walk, right? So you replace one behavior with another, right? So if you just say, stop watching television or stop being on social media, that's just really hard because that's all willpower, and your hormones, your neurotransmitters are working against you. So you've got to go to something else that's going to also replace a similar neurotransmitter response. So that's what I'm trying to get you to do today. Now, I can't construct all of this for you. You've got to construct this for yourself. I'm going to give you the tools for it today, but it's up to you to do it. Now, number one thing is now that we understand that science, the next part is super important. I'm going to construct these together, and then we're going to put it together, and then we're going to try and figure this out together, okay? The next thing is, you have to understand, joy is fundamentally, and if you haven't heard anything else, make sure it is, it's communal. It's relational. You can't be joyful on your own. That's a false reality. That's not joy. That might be happiness, but it's not joy. Joy involves other people. It involves the other beings which you live with. So thus, isolation is a killer for joy. That's why community is so important for those who live alone or isolated, spend a lot of time, how important it is to come to church, to be with people. That's why the COVID isolation was so damaging to the human spirit, and why church is so important to the human spirit. It's not just a accidental design that we said we need to come to church every. That's what the people who don't come to church don't understand. It's not about obligation. It's about healthy living. Healthy living for our spiritual body, our soul. That's what's on the line, is the health of our soul, not just the body. So both these things are going to work together, both soul and body. So we need community for church. As a result, joy flourishes in connection and diminishes in isolation. Now that's sort of stating the obvious. If I have no one to share with, like, just give you the most sort of mundane example. Let's say I won a lottery ticket. I had a winning lottery ticket. Went in on a lottery ticket. And I had nobody to share it with. Not the money, the news. Now, how joyful could you be? I mean, it's almost a cognitive dissonance inside our head to say, well, yeah, I won, because you want to tell someone. And if everyone just ignored you, you would immediately get depressed. You would immediately, because you got to be heard. So joy needs to be heard. It needs to be shared. Okay? Has to be. It's relational. Now, here's what's also important. It's incredibly resilient. Once you have a choice and a consistent habit, this is what I'm going to suggest, this is what I'm asking you to get the dopamine hit and understand this, is that once you establish the habit of joy, it continues to produce. And here's what's interesting. It then surpasses, it goes over any circumstance that comes across it. So as a result, for example, you get sick. You don't suddenly, boom, all the joy is gone out of your life. You continue to keep going. Why? Because you've got this muscle memory that's choosing joy, and it's outside of circumstance, whether illness, or whether it's a death or dying in our family, or loss of a job, or loss of a relationship. It continues to keep going because it's this muscle memory that keeps producing. Now, because habits both of the mind and our heart that are cultivated continue to operate regardless of circumstances. That's really important. So now here's what's really important. If you are not a person who has a habit of joy and you get sick, you're not going to suddenly be joyful. Oh, I'm wonderful. This is great. No, that's not the way it works. You've got to have it before you get sick. You've got to have the habit before you start dying, because when you start dying, you get bitter. I'm just telling you, if you get sick, if you get a serious illness, and you've got things starting not work, your immediate response is, I am a victim of this. Okay, that's the natural response. However, if you've got this habit of joy, when sickness happens, it's still joy. Why? Because it's become a habit of our life. Now, you just have, it's not about trust me. I'm going to ask you to practice this, because here's what we've got to do. We've got to actually start making those choices now. Why? Because every one of us is going to die. And some of us are going to get a long run at it. Things start to slowly deteriorate. And some of us is going to happen very fast. But none of us is going to get out of here alive. I mean, not here. I'm not going to kill you tonight. I mean, not here. I mean, but I'm using the general world, right? And that's good news. And why is that good news? Because that's the real joy. The real joy is the resurrection. You see how it comes? You can now connect into eternal joy because that's what's going to take us the whole way home. And that's our fundamentally destiny. It's our source and destiny. We are going back to where we came from, gone from God. And if we understand that journey, then there is nothing to be afraid of because God is with us the entire time, all the way home. He never leaves us. That's the ultimate message of the gospel. Now, okay, so now that I've given you that, look, here's the other part. So while they say suffering, and I say they is Archbishop Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama say, suffering is inevitable in this life, but our response is what we can make the differences. What I would say is death is also inevitable, and our response to the process is ours. We can choose to die with grace and joy. But we can't wait. We don't have time to wait to make that choice because when it comes down to illness and you start getting ill, it's hard. I'm going to tell you, it's hard. And if you don't have a habit of it, it's very hard. Very, very hard. So I'm not Pollyannish this. I'm just saying that why, but I'm trying to give you the motivation to do it now because it does last a lifetime. I've watched it up close. I've seen the difference between a person who dies with joy and a person who does not die with joy. And it makes a huge difference. A person who dies with faith and a person who does not die with faith. I'm telling you, people, it is a huge difference. I do not want to die without faith. I do not want to die without joy. Because it's our most horrendous thing to watch. Bitterness, anger, lashing out, all the stuff inside comes out. It's ugly. It is, I hope you never have to ever see it. I've seen them too many times. So we're going to go straight into now I'm going to use this, the guy, his name is B.J. Fogg. He's a Stanford professor, and he was the one who helped Facebook and Instagram develop some of the algorithms. I don't know this to be true, but I think he felt so guilty about it, he formed his own organization on tiny habits, and he has a whole foundation. He's given his life away by teaching people how to choose habits that actually break on the positive side as opposed to on the negative side. I mean, so here, I don't want to dump on, look, there are some positive things about social media. It does connect us in ways that we've never been connected before. Like, I give you the example, just a simple, recent example. When we were on pilgrimage, we had only 44 people with us. We had 144 people watching online and equally enjoying. They weren't there, but they were enjoying vicariously through us watching what we were doing online. So there is good things. Don't get me wrong. It's not all negative, but we need to be actively in control of these devices in our lives, because if we do what we've always done, we're going to get what we always got, which means we're going to be wasting 4 to 5 or 6 hours a day on this stuff with no net good. So here's the science behind B.J. Fogg's habit. He says, emotions create habits, not just repetition. That's if I was to sum up his book, that's it right there. You've got to engage the emotions because that's the thing that's going to produce the neural pathways through your brain to repeat. If you rely only on repetition and willpower, it will be brutally hard to establish a habit. It's not that you can't, you do, but you've got to constantly use your will to do so. And that's just, there's not a lot of us who have the discipline to do that over and over again. So you've got to make it enjoyable, right? So they came up with a very simple thing, ABC, B.J. Fogg. A is the anchor, B is the new behavior, C is to celebrate. To celebrate is the single most important part of this, because you can do A, B, A, B, A, B, and you will not turn that into a habit unless you make sure you celebrate. You've got to have it emotional. You've got to get the dopamine hit. You've got to feel like this is what I want to do. Boom, I feel good. Ooh, yeah, I feel good. That's what you're looking for. So you've got to create it. I can't tell you what those are going to be for you. I'm going to suggest some, but you've got to find something that gives you that C. Now, anchor, let's talk about what an anchor is. An anchor is an existing habit or action that you do every day. You get up out of bed. You have a cup of coffee. You go to the bathroom. You take your shower. These are things you do every day. You don't think about it. You have to do them. You do them, right? You brush your teeth at night is a habit you already have. You have a cup of coffee is a habit you already have. You get up out of bed every day, it's a habit you already have. You're not having to think about that. Okay, you see what I'm saying? You're not thinking about it, I've already do it. So what you do is you attach, now to use another author from, it's a different tiny habits, it's called Atomic Habits, it's called habit stacking. Okay, you stack the habit, so he calls it anchoring, but I like the term stacking because it actually works. You stack it right next to another one, right? So let me give you an example of this, a really mundane example. And then you attach it to that habit, you introduce new behavior, and then again, the behavior is B, the C is you celebrate. Something that says, well, yeah. Right? Now, he calls that, I forgot what the term he uses now, I'm going to remember in a second, but he has a term for, yeah. You try to invent a new word, but it never stuck with me, so I don't think it's stuck with anyone else. Anyway, so that idea of celebrate is super important. So let me give you a simple example that I did in my life, that for years, my dentist said to me, you've got to floss. I know. He said, no, you really need. You got a crooked tooth, and if you don't get that crooked tooth flossed, I'm going to have to pull out that crooked tooth, and it's in your front, and it's going to not be a very nice replacement. And that didn't really motivate me either. Until he actually had to do a filling in the back of the front of the tooth. And boy, you ever get something in the front of your tooth, you've got to get shots in the roof of your mouth. Oh. Wow, I said, no, forget the shots, just do it without the shots. He said, no, you don't want me to do it. I said, no, I do. And he starts drilling on this tooth without Novocaine. Now I was motivated. Now I changed. So where did I do the flossing? Where would you stack it? Right after you brush your teeth, right? That's the obvious place, right? So that's what I did. And then the dentist says, I want you to use one of those picks. There's a little pick he wants to get that. So he put in a new crown and a bridge, and it's hard to get. He said, you got to get a pick in it. Okay, I stacked it after that. So then my vet told me, you need to clean your dog's teeth. I go, what? Yeah, you should clean your dog's teeth every day. What? I'm struggling to clean my own teeth every day. So I said, okay, let's see if it works. Science of it, I brush my teeth, I floss my teeth, I use a pick of my teeth, and then I do it to my dog Bella. Now, I don't floss our teeth, just so you know. I do brush her teeth every night, but I do not floss her. So that's successful stacking. Now, here's another thing. I was in, you got to understand why this is so important, because when you brush your teeth, you feel a little bit of satisfaction. You've done what you know you needed to do. So you could do a little dance. So I do a little dance with my Bella. Hey, Bella, look at this. So you do that. So that's the celebrate part, right? So then during the summer, I was down at a health farm. Many of you know I talked about this one at home. And one of the things is you need to, I have plantar fasciitis, driving me crazy, right? And I meant to get these little half balls that you're meant to bend your foot over for 2 minutes, and it's very hard to. It keeps you steady, and you have to stay, but it bends you. So I said, "Oh my God, how am I going to do this?" Habit stack. I'll do it while I'm brushing my teeth. 2 minutes. So it works. I still do it. Habit stack. It works every single day. Why? Because they're sitting right there. I have to trip over them to get to my sink. So now I've stacked that. Then my physical therapist tells me, you need to start balance technique. I said, what do you mean balance technique? Well, the biggest reason people fall is because they're balanced. When the older you get, you need to keep your balance. And I said, I'm not too bad in balance. It's okay. Stand on one foot for 2 minutes. I said, 2 minutes on one foot. I couldn't do it for 10 seconds. And then So she says, you need to spend 2 minutes balancing every day. So now I changed my routine. So now I stand while I'm brushing my teeth on one foot. And I brush and I do my flossing while I'm on those billy things, you know. So, like, okay, now there's eventually going to run a limit. I'll be there for a half hour every night doing my teeth. It was like, so, I mean, I get it, but there's a limitation to stacking. I get that. But you get the concept, right? Okay, so now let me introduce you a couple of anchor ABCs for you. Now, you got to think about these, and we're going to talk about this in a second. But you got to choose something, because you're not getting out of here without choosing something, okay? So I'm going to suggest like a morning habit, a possible morning habit. You want you to think of a morning habit, but I'm going to give you one example. If you drink coffee, that's your anchor, is that coffee. And as you take the first sip of the habit, you're going to make a prayer. And the prayer is, thank you, God, for another great day. And then you're going to have your coffee. That's your sip. That's your celebrate. You're not getting a coffee sip until you've said your prayer. See where you got it? See how you put it right in between? You stack it, right? So you got that habit, you stuck it in here, and you celebrate by having a cup of coffee, right? Now, maybe you make it extended prayer. Maybe you'd say something more than that. But I'm just saying, make it simple. These got to be tiny things. You cannot do more than 2 minutes. Okay? So you got to understand that the science says 2 minutes is how you establish habit. Then once it's a habit, you can have at it. Like, that's what I'm doing with my night stuff. I can have them stacking all these things. I keep going and going. But each one of them is only 2 minutes. Do you see where we're going to science? Why it's important to watch the science, right? That's what they do with Facebook and Instagram. Then it takes any more than 30 seconds. And TikTok has got this down to it's less. 30 seconds. 30 seconds. See? You don't understand the science. They're following the science. Let's us follow the science too. Okay, an afternoon or a midday one. Your anchor is you finish one meeting and you have another meeting. You go from one Zoom to the next Zoom. This happens to me all the time. You're going from this meeting to that meeting. So your new time, so you know you finish your meeting. Every meeting comes to a finish. You know every meeting has a beginning. Right? Somewhere, a finish and begin. You stop and you insert your new habit in between. And you pause. And you breathe. And you say, come, Holy Spirit, be with me in this meeting. Right? And then you celebrate. I don't know, maybe it's not celebrate by turning on the next Zoom. I'm not sure. That might be negative. But you go into the next meeting. But you see how you reframe, you take hold of that minute, and you say, now you can insert that anywhere. Right? In between two stacked events, anchored moments right in the middle of your day. Now here's an evening one. Right? You get into bed. Everyone gets into bed. At least I hope everyone gets into bed. You don't fall asleep on the sofa. But maybe you do that too. But eventually you get into bed. So before you get into bed, you're getting into bed as you're celebrating. You're taking the habit, you're separated out, and you're going to do something just before you get into bed. Or just as you get into bed, then you do it. So you get into bed, and then maybe you sit down, and before you lay down, you say 3 things I'm grateful for this day. 2 minutes, no more, then lay down. Now, if you want, lay down and do it. Chances are you'll fall asleep, but that's all right. That's you fall asleep doing that. That's not a bad thing. But you see what you're putting in, and then you get to do what you want to do. Right? Everybody wants to sleep. So you just insert. So those are 3. Now, so here's another one for a weekly one. You pick whatever night it is. But every Sunday night, let's say, just say it's Sunday night, I'm going to text a friend. That's it. And you're going to celebrate that you did it on Sunday night. See, just every night, there's always the same week comes. Every week, you've got the Sunday night. So that's not a problem. You don't have to figure it. That's your habit. But it's Sunday night, and you put it into somewhere that you know is your last thing. Maybe it's the last thing you do before you go to bed. Oh, Sunday night, boom. And you lock it in. Now, maybe some people have Sunday night dinner with family. Then you say, okay, well, that's it. I'm going to slip it in just before I go to dinner. Now, there are many other opportunities here, right? And I'm not suggesting which one you should do, but I want you to think about what you need to do for you. Because like another one is, like for those of you who are parents with children, and many of you have got your children over there, you come in today and it's really hard to reset because you come in, the kids are, and it's chaos, right? Before you park the car in the garage, before you turn off the engine, or after you turn off the engine before you get out, you pause. That's your anchor. You park the car. when you say a prayer. Lord, help me be patient with the kids. Let me smile and be grateful for the gift of my kids. Or if you're meeting somebody who's your best friend or your spouse or your girlfriend or boyfriend, you pause just before you get out of the car and you say, again, help me be present to my spouse, to my girlfriend, to my boyfriend. Let me practice listening today. I'm not going to have the last word. I'm going to let them speak. Right? So whatever habit it is you want that's going to give you joy, right? We've got these pillars. Which one are you working on? Where are you at? I don't know which one you're at, but you've got to decide which one that you're at this point. So Ignatius says this about this habit forming. It's not so much about knowing, but it's about savoring that fills the soul with joy. Savoring. It's aligned completely to this celebration, this C, A, B, C. You've got to celebrate. You've got to savor it. That's why several of the authors I mentioned earlier today, from Francis to Ignatius to Pope Francis, all talk about memory. That's the savoring component that's critical. You can't let that go. Now, okay, so here's where we're going to stop. And we're going to again, think, pair, and share. And here's the thing I want you to do. What is the one habit that I can add to my day and it will open me to more joy? You have that, I think. You don't have that? Yeah, you do. No? Okay, so it doesn't, you do have it. Okay, here we go. What is the one small habit that I can add to my day? And try it, it's not on the slide now, but try to figure out where are you going to anchor it, okay? Where are you going to anchor it? So let's think about it just while it's coming up on the screen. What is the one small habit I can add to my day and where that would open me to more joy? So let's take 1 minute to think about it. No one else could tell you where this is going to work for you, okay? All right, so let's come together. So we're going to name one habit, one small step, one small habit, and the anchor, right? What's the one small habit I can add to my day to open me to more joy? And I'm looking for the anchor as well. You've got to name the anchor, okay? So you're looking for A and B, A and B. All right, so let's share with our neighbor. And you can choose a different neighbor if the other person is no longer joyful. No, sorry, I'm just kidding. Okay, we're going to come on back. We're going to, we got 2 microphones. Okay, so we'll take a couple of different samples. So who wants to share a new habit, new tiny habit, and where? A and B. A and B. So who wants to share their ABC? Come on. Don't be shy now. Go on, Jim.
Okay, here we go.
So before I get up from breakfast and leave for work, I'm now going to adopt a habit to give my beautiful wife an extended hug.
I like that. And you get that's a good. He did A, B, and C all at once. I like that. I like that. They're all 3 in there. Okay, who over here?
So mine is with coffee, that's the anchor. And it's my gratitude statement, which is 3 words that I have had for a couple of years now. And 3 words that really help me frame the day. So it's to be grateful, have gratitude, of course.
Okay.
Second one is to be open to learning and growth and change. So the word open. And the third one is enough, to remind myself that I am enough.
I'm enough. Perfect. Lovely. And then you can have your coffee, your C.
And then I can have my coffee.
Feed yourself. Over
Okay.
here.
I'll share this since I apparently made you cry. The anchor is getting out of bed every morning and always repeating this to God that was taught by one of my Cursillo brothers. Thank you, God, for another day that was not promised. Thank you, God, for another day that wasn't promised.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Perfect. And then okay. Anyone else want to share? One more. Okay, back there. Well, sorry, Christine. Sorry. We'll come to you in a second.
Well, I have 2 quick ones. The anchor is washing my hands, and I say 2 Hail Marys every time I do that. The pandemic taught me. I actually stole it from Keith, corporate. If those who know her, that was a habit of hers.
Wait, slow down.
So, okay,
Slow
sorry.
down.
What's
your anchor?
The anchor is I wash my hands.
Wash your hands.
And every time I do that, I say 2 Hail Marys.
Okay.
And for somebody that I want to pray for, or
Perfect.
that I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
And then the other example is I do similar of waking up and thanking God. I go out in the morning and look up at the sky and thank God. And the last one is every time I write, when I sit down, I always pray as one. And then I start writing, whether
Right.
it's a poem, journalistic, corporate writing, anything. I always say that.
Cool. What?
She wants to wait. Okay.
You don't want to do it? Okay. All right, okay. All right, well, look, you've got to hang. So here's what, in this next hour, you're going to have an hour of time. I really want you to work on that ABC. This is your homework that you've got to do. Like, it's not going to happen unless you decide to. Your behavior, like this is the science of behavior. Behavior will not change on you until you decide you want to change it. Okay, I'm going to say that again. It's so obvious, but it needs to be written in a book that costs $25. Right? So I'm going to write that book. It's just going to be, your behavior won't change unless you decide to change it. Right? So, and that goes for positive or negative. Right? So if you're a person who's always negative about something, you are going to continue to be negative about something until you decide, I don't want to do that anymore. Now, that in itself does not change your behavior. Now you need to take the steps to change it. The first is the decision. The first actually will be the desire, then the decision, and then you have to design the behavior to do it. I gave you the design. I can't tell you what the behavior you want to change. I just gave you the design. A, B, C. Really simple. Okay? So I can't emphasize that enough. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the saints and how this interacts and why this is so important, because this is what they did. They didn't have the science back then, but they figured it out. St. Ignatius said, remember this, told there were pencils in the hand, there were instruments in God's hands. Pencil, like a pencil, he doesn't use the word pencil, he uses instruments. I'm using the word pencil because that's easier for me to recognize. And that God is a writer. We must sharpen the pencil. In short, if we want the divine hand to write, he has to have a pencil that's writable. If we don't sharpen the pencil, it can't write. Our work is sharpening the pencil. If we can just show up in prayer, create the habit of prayer. Now, here's a couple of Ignatian habits that I'm going to suggest to you. To take the examine, it takes 5 to 10 minutes to do at the end of the day. 3 moments of gratitude that happened that day. What are the highlights of your day? 3 moments of grace that broke through, and write them down. You don't have to have it can be a word, a sentence, or a paragraph for each one. It doesn't take any more than 5 to 10 minutes to do. I can promise you, as a witness, it will change your life forever. Find a place to anchor it. For me, after I brush, this is my thing, brush my teeth, I go to my prayer desk and I do my examine. That's the one that never gets given up, ever, right? Now, the other one that St. Ignatius suggested was a colloquy. A colloquy is a brief chat with God. A colloquy with Jesus, a colloquy with Mary, a colloquy with the Holy Spirit, a colloquy with God. Whoever the persons of the Holy Trinity you feel most easy for you to have a conversation with, a chat, then you do that, colloquy with God. Or for some people, love to talk to Mary. Mary's very accessible, so a colloquy with Mary. Ignatius does all 4, right? A colloquy, he does, and that's part of the spiritual exercise. Now, just see what he's done. So where does he asks you to insert that in between moments in your day. So now you see the transition point, wherever it is, ending a meeting, before a meeting, after a meeting. When you go to the bathroom, get out of the bathroom. I don't care where you put it. While you're in the bathroom, I don't care. It's something you do every day, so be it. Make your bathroom a prayerful. Like for some couples and with family, kids busy, the bathroom's their only sanctuary. And seriously, like the kids running around, they can't get any. There's no quiet place in the house. The bathroom's the only place where they leave you alone. So are they going to miss the bathroom for 2 or 3 more minutes? No. So the other one he uses is a contemplation. This is this is not scriptural contemplation or scriptural meditation. This is contemplation, simple true contemplation. This is not Ignatian contemplation. This is true contemplation, which he promoted, was to sit in silence and to simply smile and say, "Thank you, Lord." That's the totality of it. Don't add more than 2 minutes at the beginning. You've got to build on 2 minutes, establish a habit, then you do it. Then once it's established, you can have at it. Okay, so that's the science behind that. It's better to be disposed to the better disposed the instrument is, the closer the approach to the condition it will be, that we will be the superconductor of God's grace. Ooh, I love that word. The superconductor of God's grace. Now, here's what Pope Francis says. He cautions, says, the joy of the gospel fills the heart and lives of all who encounter Jesus. But we must allow it. Must allow it in. Now, he encourages us to be joy, as this is what I mentioned earlier. This is Pope Francis, is that joy is a memory of God's love for us. Memory of God's love. That brings us to gratitude. And then joy as mission for others, that's your compassion. And then joy is the fruit of loving forgiveness, and that's your forgiveness. So those are your 3 steps that he uses. Now, here's what I wanted to go to, and we're going to bring this to a close because we got to get you out of here, I think. Am I behind time, or where am I at in time? No, I'm on good in time. So I want to reframe this. Do you remember the session we talked about the building the fire, the kindling? Remember I said it was a fire. If you were trying to build a fire, what would you do? You would start with kindling, right? Now, you wouldn't throw a log onto the fire. You would start with... So I can't emphasize enough the importance of tiny. Small habits. And once the habits gets better, the fire starts to burn, then you can put more onto the fire, okay? So think it's helpful to have that image you have as you're building your new habits. You have to start small. We put too much of a big, it's going to put the whole fire out, right? You'll lose the whole habit building. So thus my evening of, brush your teeth, floss your teeth, pick your teeth, then have standing on one foot, standing on both feet, then you got the dog, and now the examen. Well, the examen was actually there before all those. I inserted in between those two. So I can't emphasize that enough. Joy is not the log you're thrown in the fire. It's the spark that keeps the fire alive, right? Don't think of it as that you're going to get joy by putting a big log on the fire. This is how I get joy. The fire is, if you just do all these little things, the joy comes because the fire burns. Okay, so joy is the consequence of all these habits. Okay, but your desire is joy. I want to be joyful. So you keep choosing joy by choosing to put all these little things on the fire. So again, I'm going to just, the looping, they call it looping, is start small, savor, slow down and savor whatever it is you have accomplished. That cup of tea, whatever cup of coffee, savor it, enjoy the moment that you've accomplished what you've done. Now here's the new two parts that are super important. I'm going to insert these here. So savor it and then share it. That's the next one. Share it and celebrate it. That lets the joy rise up within you. Because when you share, again, it's like committing something to memory. I don't remember, I think we have some teachers in here, but when I was younger, if we made a mistake and we did something stupid, I had to write on the board like 400 times, whatever it is. I will not do this again. I will not do this again. I will not do it. At the end of the day, all I had in my head was, I will not do this again. I had it for weeks in my head. I will not do it. Whatever this is, right? And of course, that's the whole intention, was the more you repetition creates another circuit in the brain, right? So repetition is important, right? Super, super important. Now, somebody asked me during lunch, and I want to respond to this, about habits when you're traveling. So if you develop a habit, and this is super important as well. If let's say you get to the point where you are praying, let's say for argument's sake, 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the evening, and then you go on vacation. You can't have a goal of doing 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes. You have to have a new schedule. It's called vacation schedule. Because you will not succeed in holding on to 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes. Why? Because you got so little control of your environment while you're on vacation. But what you can do is 5 minutes. So you have a vacation habit schedule that you pare it back, and you do that while you're on vacation. Why? Because you can always spend 5 minutes in the bathroom. Your spouse is not going to complain in 5 minutes. Well, what are you doing in there? 15 minutes, they might be worried. Right? But whatever work, but wherever it is you do, 5 minutes, you go down the street and you can have 5 minutes walking and you can always, so pare it back to what you will do, not what you inspire to do. So then the reason why is what's critical here is you've got to continue to do the habit. Right? Because the habit is the important part. You just keep doing it, and it will keep happening. So when you come back, you can go ramp back up right away because you don't have to make any effort to reestablish a habit because you just changed the schedule from a vacation schedule back to a home schedule. Does that make sense? And it works. I do this with all my spiritual directees, and it works really, really well. I got it from my spiritual director, so it's working for me. It works very well. So let me give you an example of how this works so well. So I have to, because I have a bad back and I have to do a whole ton of stretching first thing in the morning. It takes a minimum of 20 minutes for me to do my stretching. So I insert all sorts of prayer in between this is my stacking in the morning. I say a prayer before, I say a prayer in the middle, I say a prayer at the end. So I turn that into a 30-minute of prayer by inserting prayers in between it, right? When I'm on the road, I have a smaller rolling pin that I use this rolling pin. It's a styrofoam, heavy-duty styrofoam rolling pin. It's too big. But I have a little small one I take with me, and I spend 10 minutes doing the exercise. And so it's a 15-minute exercise, prayer in the morning with a 10 minute of exercise in so it's my prayer time. So you see, and it works because even though it's smaller, it's not perfect, it's not ideal, but it works. Why? Because then I come home and I never miss out. So the routine is critically important. You got to keep doing it, always doing it. And like if you may have a work day schedule that's different from your weekend schedule. That's fine. You might spend an hour in prayer on the weekend, but during the weekday, this is not possible. It's down to a half hour. I don't know. You have to figure what works for you. But having different set schedules works really, really well. And you've got to give permission for yourself to scale back when it's not reasonable. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so that's the one. So sharing it with somebody else is that part of writing. It's like kind of writing. When you share it with somebody else, you're telling the story and you're actually remembering it better. So that's part of the savoring. Savoring and sharing go together. And that's the way to celebrate. They are two different elements of how to celebrate. Let the joy and will roy. So here's some possible pathways for you that I'm going to suggest, and then we're going to give you some time. So if you want a habit of gratitude, then maybe your anchor is coffee or before you go to bed. And maybe it's a smile and you reframe your day or you close your day. You're looking for it, right? So we talked about those. If forgiveness is your habit you want to establish, then where are you going to anchor it? Do you go to work every day and you have to commute? Then maybe make it your commute. And you take a deep breath and whatever it is, when you get out of the car, something to anchor it to something you do each day, and it releases this resentment before it happens, right? If compassion, I gave you this one earlier, a text alert that you say you're going to make this one text to a friend every week. It doesn't have to be the same friend. It could be a different friend on Sunday night, whatever it is, right? Don't underestimate the power of silence. So this is one of the things I want to see if you can cultivate in your life. Silence. Turn off the television. Turn off your cell phones. Turn off everything, music, everything, and just abide in silence, even if it's for 2 minutes. Step outside, literally smell the roses. Enjoy the silence. Listen to the birds. Listen to the wind. Don't expect anything. Just listen. Just experience the silence. Okay? So find a way to cultivate silence. Okay? That's another one. That's a real thing. And then the joy journal or the gratitude journal, if that's what you're looking to, the bedtime's an obvious anchor. Maybe what might help you is to celebrate is light a candle. I don't know if you have scented candles. Some people love scented candles. Then you light a candle. You kind of put those together. It deepens your life. Embrace the silence. Embrace the gratitude. Okay, so here's the last question I want you to do before we finish this session. I want you to think, now it's a who, not the what. Because joy needs to be shared. We need to look at who helps us be joyful. Now, so here's the question. Who has an instrument of joy for me recently? So here's what I'm going to ask you to do on this 1 minute of reflection on yourself. Ask God to help you identify that person. Okay? Ask God to help you identify who that person is. Okay? So let's take a minute and then we'll share for 2 minutes. Okay, so let's share now with a neighbor. Thank you. Okay, come on back. We're going to... Okay. Who wants to share?
Still sharing.
Okay, so who has been an instrument of joy in your life? All right, here we go. Right here. Okay, right there.
My grandson.
Your grandson. You want to say what?
He is in second year of college, but he's always been in love, and he calls me once a week.
He calls you once a week.
And he tells me, Manita, he calls me Manita. Manita, don't forget 3 Hail Marys every day, 3 Hail Marys.
That's it. So he's in college. Grandson is in college and calls once a week. There you go. Well, that's awesome. 3 Hail Marys. Okay, who else? Who has been giving you an instrument? Who is an instrument of joy for you?
Here we go.
What? Go for it.
My sister Mary, who is here today. Sorry, I'm emotional. We recently celebrated 30 years of our siblings getting together. We get together once a year for about a week. There's 8 of us, so it's kind of a doing. And this year we went to Europe on a river cruise.
Wow. And you're still talking. No, sorry. That's amazing. 30 years later. Awesome. Thank you, Nancy. Yeah. Over this side. This side's the quiet side. Surely you got
Okay.
somebody in your life who's joyful.
I'm coming over there.
Okay, all right, okay. Somebody's coming. Don't get this side gets ready. We're going to come.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, there's one there. She's going to come to you.
Our granddaughter is teaching 3rd grade in Mountain View, and she's just really doing it well, and we're so proud of her.
Okay.
And so
And she's in 3rd grade, is that what you said?
teaching 3rd grade
13th
over in Mountain
grade.
View, and it's tough. You know,
Oh, yeah.
So every once in a while she calls us.
Good.
Mom,
Thanks, Phil. All right,
come,
over here.
come to dinner. And she said, we said, you're not going to ask us. You come to dinner. We want to talk to you. It's wonderful. She just feels so comfortable just to come to our house and have dinner. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. And then there's another one there. And then have you got one? No, go ahead. Kathy there, I think.
Kathy?
Right here. I think it's Kathy. I can. Yes, it is.
My granddaughter, who lives in Tennessee, who's like 8.5 months pregnant, has been calling me, and we've been encouraging each other, and just to hear her voice, and it's just a joy to me.
Okay. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. For the person that you have identified today as a person who is an instrument of joy, is to use, is to see if you can get that back into the habit of gratitude and tell them you're grateful. And if they call you, you call them and say, thank you for being in my life. So, so here's what I'm going to say is, like, you've heard several people mention grandchildren. So the power of a phone call or a text, this is where our technology can work in our favor on a regular basis. Is really transformative. I used to call, you've heard me say this, I used to call my mother every Friday at 12 noon on my time. And if I was ever traveling or something, I couldn't make the call. The next day she says, oh, I was waiting for the call. I'm thinking, Mom, I think the phone works both ways. Anyway, but that's how much she would set her clock by. I mean, she would wait for the night, and my sister would say, look, if you're not going to call, it's fine. Just tell her so she's not waiting there for hours. She won't even eat until the phone comes in. She's waiting she's literally waiting. So if you're late, just tell me, and I'll tell her that we can go eat. We can, because, that's 8 o'clock in the night there. She said, we're not eating until you've made the phone call. So she says, I'm hungry. I want to eat. Call me, I don't care. Anyway, so when my mother died, I called my sister. Same, they lived together, and my sister took care of her, so I called her, and so important. Now, she has figured out how the phone works both ways. So she does call me. Anyway, look, here's what I just want to say to you on this, is that habits have to be designed. Behavior has to be designed. In this next hour, I ask you to design some new habit that will bring you joy. Right? So wherever it is that you go, whether it's in the art, whether it's in the poetry or one of the discussion groups, or whether you're out walking in the chapel for prayer or out walking in the prayer stations, make the commitment to one new habit. Design it, A, B, C. I promise you that this will change your life. This is how we beat back the science. We use the science to beat back these social media companies, and we start taking back control. Now, don't try to take away something until you put something in place. Because once you've got this in place, you're going to find things start to squeeze. The things that aren't producing joy, which we're going to talk about at the next session, you start squeezing those out. I'm going to talk about that in the next session. Okay? But you've got to establish this first and make it a habit, and then you do what I do. And it expands. And all of a sudden, 2 minutes is 4, 8, 10, 15. All of a sudden, it's an hour routine. And you've got it. And it doesn't seem to be a trouble. Okay, let me close with a blessing and a poem I wrote for you. A blessing for small beginnings. May you trust the wisdom of a small beginning, of the seed, small, unseen, still sacred. May your joy grow not from grand gestures, but from the simple yes whispered before coffee, the breath you take before worry, the smile you offer no one saw. May the daily become holy, a sacrament made of socks and silence and of stubborn grace, of yet another ordinary morning. May your life then be rewoven with the smallest stitches of love, threaded through with God, woven with presence. And when it seems like nothing's changing, may you remember this: let go and let God. Roots deepen in secret before the bloom. Amen. All right, so we'll see you back here at our last session will be here at 3:30. You've got 2:50. It's now 2:15. You've got 2:15 to 3:30 at the breakout sessions. We have these cards and medals that we had spread out at different places, but we put them all in one location here outside in the vestibule for you. So you can pick up one of those cards, I think, and here's the different beautiful locations around the place. Thank you all.
Song, let hallelujahs flow like a river. We're coming back to life, reaching toward the light. Your love is like springtime. You're the living water, God, we thirst for you. The dry and the bare will flower and bloom. You're the sun that's shining.